Before we unlock this episode, I have to talk to you about the pleasure pods. If you know me, you know that I love teaching about slow sex and I love teaching about taking time to really feel each other's bodies. The pleasure pods is such a great product for that. Not only can you take these gorgeous little pods and melt them in the microwave to make it a massage oil, and you can massage your partner with that. You can also transition that safely into genital play, so this can be a lubricant. And then also, because it's food grade safe, you don't have to do any cleanup or transition of product if you are kind of down for some oral play. And not to mention, if you're going through perimenopause or menopause and those 15 years of maybe some vaginal dryness, the moisture that you're going to get from the pleasure pods is just above and beyond anything that you're ever going to experience. All we do is we crack this into little tiny pieces, insert when we feel like we need a little extra moisture and a little extra love down there, and go about your day. This is such an amazing all-in-one product. You have to try them out for yourself. You can find these now at Pure Pharmacy in British Columbia, at thepleasurepods.com, or Amazon Canada. Welcome to the Intimacy Unlocked podcast. I'm Serena Haines, your everything to do with sex coach, and I'm here to answer all of your juiciest sex questions. Hello, lovers, and welcome back to the Intimacy Unlocked podcast. I'm Serena Haines, your everything to do with sex coach, and today's episode is all about anal. It's my favorite topic. If you know me and you've been to any of my workshops or you've been online and you've taken my All About Anal, I'm going to be at the Atlantic Sex Show on the 14th and 15th as well, doing All About Anal. So we're not going to get into all of the details because I want you to come to that, but we are going to answer all of your anal backdoor questions today. Anal is so amazing, but it's so misunderstood, and I'm one of them. And I'm sure that there's going to be so many people listening who are like, oh, God damn, I had that one experience and I'm never going to want to feel that feeling again. And it burned and whatever. So right off the top, first things first, nothing should slip into your asshole, okay? Nothing just slips into your asshole. It takes velocity, it takes torque to get something in there. So I understand how it can slip out of the vag and slip back in. The wrong hole, I know. But we're going to talk a lot about how to prepare your body today. We're going to go through a couple of questions that came in about that. We're going to talk about how it really shouldn't hurt. It shouldn't hurt at all. Will you feel a little pressure if it's something new to you? Yeah, of course. Are you going to feel different sensations than maybe you would if you have a pussy, if you were just having vaginal play? Yeah, you will. Shocker, straight guys can have anal sex too. We're going to get into that as well. So, hold on to your undies and let's get into this. So here we go. The first question that we got it's really simple off the top. I've never tried anal before, but I'm super curious. Where do I even start without it feeling like a disaster? So I get this question a lot because, again, you guys know that I love porn, but porn teaches us so many fast things right away. And this is where a lot of us, regardless of gender, are getting our first visuals, let's say, and our first lessons on what some of these sex things, these positions and experiences are supposed to look like. So right off the bat, let me explain to you that if you see porn that has any sort of anal play in it at all, those professional actors have been training themselves, if not for that day, for a week or days before, making sure that they're ready, doing all sorts of things, just like any professional athlete would do to train for the big day. Okay. So what you see, if you're seeing, gaping holes and, trains being run on the ass, all of this stuff, that was not a spontaneous Tuesday. All right. That was a really conscious decision on everybody in that scene. And I have to preface all of that because people come to me for anal and they'll say, I really want to have anal, but when they tried to put the thing in, it really hurt and I clenched down and I don't know how people do that. And that's not step one. Okay. So here's the thing. We're going to get into a couple of other things in a second, but I need you to remember it's pinky before penis. Okay. And I say penis, it could be dildo, it could be strap-on, it could be anything, but pinky first, okay, is the first thing. So that's how little I want you to think about it. It's like the visual, if you can see me right now, go to YouTube and look up Intimacy Unlocked and follow us so you can see all of these fun little hand gestures I'm going to do today because it'll be fun. But your pinky is a lot smaller than, an average, this is a above average size penis. Like, that's going to be a really big difference when it comes to any sort of insertion, regardless of what hole it's going to go in. So if you're starting out, I just want you to think about that. But that's not first step. First step in anal. Get comfortable with the idea that anal is not shameful and that it's not supposed to hurt. And that if it does, you have a really good reason to say, do you know what? I think we're done here. I don't want to, let's move on to something else. Or, ow, I don't like that. It actually hurts. It shouldn't. Okay. So where do I even start without it feeling like a disaster? I don't ever want to have somebody initially start out with any sort of insertion or penetration. I want you to think about just having your asshole played with. So the fabulous Luna Matata has coined the phrase seduce the asshole. And it's one of my favorite things to think about because when you're seducing an asshole, you're not just seducing that part of the body, you're literally seducing somebody's nervous system in order to relax into it. So as we go through this, you're going to get a little bit of fun tidbits, and you're going to get a little bit of science and a little bit of psychology because anal is such a big topic and I have such a passion for it. Seducing the asshole has so much more to do with the safety that you feel with your partner and within your own bodies, right? So we talk a lot about feeling your yes and feeling your no. And this is one of those places where knowing your yes and no is going to come in quite handy, if I do say so myself, because you'll be able to feel, even if your body is kind of clenched, let's say your asshole is clenched a little bit because you feel nervous. If in your system you can sense, okay, I just need a few minutes because I'm used to doing some deep breathing and I can calm myself down and I can get there, then you'll be able to kind of relax into that a little bit. So I want you to think about seducing the asshole. Seduce your partner using just a lube and maybe a thumb on the outside. Using a vibrator, like a wand. Sometimes we take our wands and we put them on our clitorises and our penises and all of these things. But if you take that and you put it down around the pelvic floor, down around the perineum, and down around the asshole, that's a really great way to bring some blood flow there, kind of loosen it up. And just for the record, we also say the anal or the anus is the equal opportunity orifice. Okay, so everybody has an anus, everybody. And they all relatively feel the same when they're touched, played with, things coming in and out and doing the things that they're supposed to do. There's not very many places in our sexual lives, if we're not in a same-sex couple, that we can feel or understand or have compassion for the sensations that our partners are going through as well. But with anal, you really can. So I always like to tell people as well that if you want to stick something in somebody's asshole, you should probably stick something in your own asshole as well so that you know exactly what that feels like. And I'm talking to you straight dudes. That's who I'm actually talking to, because everybody else, they want shit in their assholes. Okay, wait. They want that's going to be in there already. They want other things in their asshole for fun, okay? But that's who I'm talking to. I need you to know that, putting something, even a finger in your own asshole is really going to help you. Seducing the asshole comes with patience, time, slowing down, just allowing yourself to be there, getting comfortable with that part of a body, because not everybody is, right? If you've never done it before, how do I even touch an asshole? So you want to use a lot of lube. Of course, I use the pleasure pods quite a bit when I'm talking about doing anal, and for a lot of different reasons. But you guys know that if you take a pleasure pod and you warm it up in your hands, it's going to turn into this beautiful creamy lube that you can use to just touch your partner all over their bodies. But if you're talking about doing anal, what you can also do is crack a little piece off if this is your own body or if you wanted a partner to do it for you, and actually have them insert it into your anus so that it's in there warming up with your body and lubricating you from the inside out. So that's just a little tip. Lube, lube, lube. If you have to use an entire pleasure pod or an entire bottle of lube to do your anal play, please do it. That's how much lube you need. That's how much lube I recommend. There's never not enough. Okay? There's always not enough. You need to have all the lube. Your anus does not self-lubricate, okay? So a pussy does. Even when we're talking about penises, we get some pre-cum, we got some juices that are coming out of there, but your anus is not going to. Any kind of juices that you basically feel down there is probably just like sweat and stuff. So you just want to make sure that you have a lot of lube. So that's the first thing that I would like you to think about. Now, other people talk about like cleaning, and we're going to get into a couple of questions about that as well. So don't worry about that just yet, but just know that poop happens. And if you're going to play with somebody's butthole, then you might have to deal with that. But we're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. You're going to want to make sure that when you're seducing the asshole, if you're using a finger, you can be using a dental dam or a condom or a latex glove as well if you're interested in protecting yourself against any STIs or bacteria or anything like that. So that's a really important thing as well. Some people do, some people don't, and that's totally up to you. Risk aware, consensual sex is what I say. It's always going to have some sort of risk, and you get to decide what level you're going to play at, okay? But make sure that you're kind of massaging the outside of the anus. So let's pretend that my hand, if you were to clench your hand into a fist and look at where your thumb and your forefinger meet. So, and if you're looking at me on YouTube, you can see those little crinkles inside where your hand are is kind of like what your asshole looks like. And if you were to take a little finger or a thumb and just kind of roll around that, like nothing on the inside, just kind of rolling around the outside and just stimulating, playing, tickling, pushing, we call it like ringing the doorbell, like just ring the doorbell, give it a little push and a little play. That would be a really nice way to kind of start to seduce the asshole, to give it a little time to recognize that there's some positive pleasure and playtime about to happen. The other thing that I recommend people doing, and I know that this sounds a little rough, a little harsh, people panic when I say this sometimes, but use your knuckles instead of a finger. Like a finger can slip in kind of quickly, right? Like the first little knuckle of a finger. But if you put your hand in, like your other hand in a fist, and you kind of pop your knuckle out a little bit, it's really hard for knuckles to slip into an asshole. Okay. So your partner will probably feel a lot more comfortable knowing that there's something larger there, which is why I recommended the dildo, or the vibrator earlier, is that a lot of the time the heads of those vibrators, they cover so much surface area that it would take quite a bit of, velocity or torque to get that to slip in. So you can rest assured knowing that you're not going to have any kind of, slips that are going to make you feel a little nervous about going forward. Talking about this stuff with your partner is going to be really important as well. So if you've never done that before, you want to say to your partner, like, do we have a safe word? Do we have a stop word? Do we have a take it easy word, right? And I've said this to you a couple of times before that I have three safe words. I have easy, which is just like back off just a little bit. Just take your time. Just, easy, like I'm almost there, but that's okay. Enough means, this sensation is a little bit too much for me. I'm overstimulated. I don't love it, but I don't want to stop play. I just want to transition into something different. And then my safe word. And my safe word is what my partner knows. And when I say that, then we end all play, right? So just to go through what your safe word is again. So having a couple of different little ones to ease into that play is really good too, because you might just be like, I think I'm done here and I want to go do something else. So just kind of have a little word for that. Easing into anal is probably the best way to do it. You could also try oral, manual play, oral play, vibrator play. Anything at all that is not insertion and not penetration yet. Okay? So hopefully that helps with you, starting out with it, not feeling like a disaster. Because if you go full force, something could happen or make you feel like you never want to try it again. So I always say take little baby steps, right? Take little baby steps into that. Okay, the next question is, my partner wants to try anal, but I'm not sure I'm into it. How do I figure out if it's a hard no or just a fear or just fear talking? Okay, so even the fact that you asked this question, it makes me think that it might just be fear. And when I say fear, I would challenge you to switch out the word fear with maybe shame, a little bit of nervousness, things like that as well. Because, the scripts around anal are not always positive, like we just kind of talked about. So your partner wants to try anal, I'm not sure I'm into it. How do I figure out if it's a hard no or just fear talking? Well, kind of going back to that first question that I just answered, dive in or don't dive in, tiptoe in really slowly. Let's say your partner is going down on you in some way, you can give them the go ahead, and maybe not in the moment, because we want to have these conversations, right? It's like time, tone, and turf is what Emily Moore says all the time. You want to make sure you have your sex conversations outside of the bedroom so that when you get inside of the bedroom, you've already had that taken care of, right? We can be reminded. So as your partner's maybe going down on you or, giving you some manual play or something, you kind of have given them the go ahead to, make their way down a little bit around your perineum, make your way in between those little butt cheeks, seduce the asshole a little bit, really kind of play with a lube, a water-based silicone, a pleasure pod, and feel those crinkles around your asshole. Like they are so, think about this for a second. That is all crinkled up. If you were to take that surface area of that part of your body and, flatten it out, do you know how large of a surface area that is? There are so many nerve endings, beautiful pleasure nerve endings around our asshole. We don't feel like that because we don't talk about it a lot, right? And it has this dirty connotation when we talk about anal stuff, because of course the only thing that we think that we're supposed to do is push things out of our butts, right? We never think that we're supposed to take things in, but it feels really good for so many different reasons. So let me give you a couple of really good reasons to try anal, and maybe that will help you ease into wanting it to be something that you want to try rather than thinking, is it a hard no or fear? Let's talk about the pleasure behind it a little bit. So when we have anal sex with anything or anybody, what happens is our nervous systems have I don't want to say no choice. That's not the right way to say this, but our nervous systems go into a state of parasympathetic systems. Okay. So when our bodies are relaxed, deep breaths, yoga, meditation, just slowing things down, we go into what's called rest and digest. It's our parasympathetic nervous system that initiates, and we calm our bodies down. Okay. When we calm our bodies down, our autonomic nervous system, that's the nervous system that we have no control over, the one that takes care of our heart rate, our breathing, our digestion, things like that, things on the inside. It slows down as well. Everything calms down. In order to relax the anal sphincters, there are two. We say there are two just for ease. One on the outside, the one we can squeeze. Everybody, while you're listening, squeeze your butt, right? We can close it. We can squeeze it. We have control over that, right? The other sphincter is a little bit deeper inside, maybe an inch or so. It's kind of a tube, not to get too technical, but there's another control factor in there. And when that one is controlled, it's controlled by your autonomic nervous system. When you're in your parasympathetic state, your autonomic nervous system calms and relaxes. In order for that sphincter to relax, calm, and open up, you need to be relaxed. You need to be in your parasympathetic nervous system. So we can't be all like rush, because now we're in our sympathetic nervous system and it's like fight or flight and we're moving around. And that's what we think about sex a lot, right? So when we think about sex, what are we doing? We're heavy breathing and moaning and bouncing all over the place and thrusting and everything's moving really, really fast. But if you've been listening long enough now, you know that sex for me and what I like to teach is a much slower paced way of finding pleasure. A lot of deep breathing, a lot of presence, a lot of mindfulness. Okay. Now that doesn't have to, transition into or, translate into things not being super duper sexy. Like things are still really, really sexy. But in order for that second sphincter to relax, in order for your autonomic nervous system to relax, you need to be doing some deep breathing. So if you're with a partner who, like off the top of this episode I mentioned, is like looking at porn and thinking this is the way it's supposed to be and it's supposed to be really fast and hard all the time, maybe you want to have that conversation with them. Now, the more knowledge we have, the better, So I don't mean to nerd out on you guys, but I really kind of am just a big nerd. And this is why I love what I do. So that sphincter needs to relax. How do we do that? Deep breathing, lots of kissing, lots of foreplay, lots of stimulation. It helps if maybe you've had an orgasm already. Right? Like maybe you can already have many different kinds of orgasms, a clitoral orgasm, a penile orgasm. You can have nipple orgasms. You can have kissing orgasms. You can have all kinds of different pleasure. You can come all kinds of times. And then that's going to kind of help your body relax into it too. a lot of touching, your oxytocin is going to release. So you want to make sure that you're breathing and really kind of taking that in. When you have a partner who's going to do this with you, you want to make sure that they're having a lot of patience as well. So that second sphincter, when you get past that first one, most people can get past that first one. And that's where we come into the trouble, is that we go, okay, let's try anal. And then we either take the fingers or the toys or the penis or whatever, and we put it in, and it's about an inch or so, maybe even 2 for some people. And you're like, oh, cool. Like, we're clear, we're good to go. And then you push and you hit that wall of fire. It just burns and your stomach starts to turn and you get hot and you feel like you're going to throw up. All of those things is because that second sphincter has not relaxed enough. So it's going to take a little bit of time for that to happen. We're not going straight in. Maybe we're not going straight in with a penis. Some people can and some people can't, and that's okay. But start with a finger and go in and then push a little bit on that second sphincter. And your partner or yourself, if you're doing this for yourself, if you can do like a massage, like an around the clock massage, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, and just kind of move your finger around and around in circles while it's inside of that first sphincter, while it's inside of the anus, and start massaging that second sphincter to say, you know what, hey buddy, hey, I'm here and it's okay and everything's going to be fine and we're not going to push your boundaries and we're going to wait for you to open up and everything is going to be fine and it's going to be lovely. And then maybe with that first finger in there doing that, maybe then you can get a second finger in the first sphincter, right? Your anus, that one that we know about. And then maybe you open that anus up a little bit and you're pushing on that second sphincter just a little bit more, massaging it around in circles, allowing your partner time and space to take deep breaths through the pressure, to take deep breaths through the sensations that might be new, and allow them a minute, or even allowing yourself that minute to kind of be like, how do I feel about this? Remember, it's not supposed to hurt. There's a difference between pain and an uncomfortable uncomfortable sensation. Sometimes that uncomfortable sensation is something we want to push through, right? We want to get to the other side of that. We want to get through the mud. But if it's pain and you want to stop, you just stop. So I think that if you want to figure out if it's a hard no or just fear talking, that you should start and actually do some sort of anal play that doesn't have to do with like that fast, hard sex that maybe you think it's supposed to be, and just allow yourself some time to really explore what it feels like to have your anus touched, licked, breathed on, put a lube on there without doing anything. Maybe just ask your partner to put a lube down there while they're down there playing or doing whatever, and just see how it feels to even have a different sensation down there rather than anything going in toward you, okay? So I want you to try that. I think that would be good. Next question is it okay to enjoy anal but not want to reciprocate with my male partner? I feel guilty. Okay, so I don't know if this is a same-sex or not couple or person who's talking about this that wants to not reciprocate with their male partner, but it doesn't matter because the answer is it's totally okay. It is totally okay to want to have it and not want to reciprocate it. Now, is that a conversation that you might want to have with a partner who wants you to reciprocate it? Yeah, that's a completely different obstacle that you would have to kind of traverse, right? Like you have to have those conversations. If there's something that your partner really wants and that you don't want to try, is there a compromise? Can we get can we meet in the middle somewhere where maybe we don't do the full thing? Maybe I get the full anal and you just get like a little bit of lube and a little bit of a finger, or, whatever. Or maybe you like anilingus. Maybe you like analingus. Maybe you like to have your ass licked. I mean, like that's a hugely popular, beautiful sensation to have a warm, wet tongue like on your asshole, just kind of licking around. And that's amazing too. So, but you don't actually have to penetrate or insert anything ever. But it is totally okay for you not to want it. And then you said, I feel guilty. Well, I can understand that, right? Because that makes me feel like within this question that your partner has asked for it, right? Your partner has said something like, I would like this, or why don't you reciprocate with me? So just have those conversations and try to figure out what it is that you don't like I said, or where your compromise is. But that's a conversation that you need to have with your partner, but you don't have to want it. You don't have to want anything. If you don't want something in sex, you never have to say yes if you don't want to. That's kind of like a hard stop on that one. Okay, next question is, why do I feel shame around liking anal? Even when it feels good, I can't stop thinking I'm doing something wrong. Well, because the world has told us that it's the worst thing in the world to do. There's so much deep homophobia in the in the narratives and the scripts that we have around anal play, even in, heterosexual couples. It's still in there. And it's an absolutely, I would say terrible, but it's such a hard space to get around when everything that you've heard for a very long time is telling you the opposite, right? Now, even taking the homophobia off the table, we're also told that it's dirty, right? And that there's so much bacteria down there and it's disgusting. And then, we'll go into the whole, just that stereotypical narrative of a woman wanting anything other than baby making sex is completely taboo. And she's definitely a whore and a slut for wanting all of that. So like the society, the narratives that we've heard are against us when it comes to wanting anything outside the norm of heterosexual baby making sex. So it is completely understandable that you would feel this way. I can't stop thinking that I'm doing something wrong. Well, that's something that, all I can do is go, yeah, I know, man. That's all I can say to you in that moment, right? Is like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But now that you've heard a little bit about, what anal sex can feel like, why we would want to try to do that, where the pleasure comes from, how our bodies and our nervous systems actually benefit from being in your parasympathetic nervous system, that, when you have knowledge, you can kind of cling to a couple of little tidbits of information, right? So, in this little question and answer, are we going to, break all the shame that you have around that anal play? And are we going to break all of the scripts and narratives that you've learned your entire life? Probably not. But little tiny nuggets that you can take away is that anal sex is a beautiful space to be. It's very vulnerable. It shows a lot of trust in yourself, in your body. It will show that you will show yourself that you have agency over your pleasure, and then autonomy on how you're going to go find that for yourself, right? So anything that we do that can slowly chip away at the shame that society tells us that we're supposed to have, in my eyes, is a positive thing. Is it going to be, the one thing that Serena says on that podcast is just going to break all my shame and everything's going to go away? No, of course not. But hopefully hearing somebody talk about it, knowing that there's a community of people asking questions about it who also want to do it, knowing that there's actually an entire population, there's an entire sexuality based around this pleasure that you're going to have. And as I've said before, and I'll say it again, every straight man in the world should put something up their ass. We haven't even gotten into prostate play yet. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So there are so many really great ways or great reasons why you should try anal, or why you might want to try anal. You don't have to if you don't want to, of course. But it says, I feel shame around liking anal. It's a really vulnerable place to be. I don't know who wrote the question, right? So I don't know what your scripts are. I don't know what patterns that you've had. I don't know if you're, if you were socialized a male, it's going to be even harder for you to break the shame around that, because of course of that deep-seated homophobia, if that's where you are coming from. If you are a heterosexual person who was socialized as male, you really will have had those toxic masculine conversations brought down on you your whole life. So it's a tough place to be. But I will be the first to tell you, probably not the first, but I will be another one to tell you that as much as I jest about straight men putting things up their assholes, so many straight men put things up their assholes, and I'm so proud of all of them. And so many people love that. Okay, just for the record, in case you're a straight dude out there, just stick it up your asshole. I'm scared my partner will think differently of me if I admit I like anal. How do I unlearn that? So again, we're talking about that shame, right? So, okay, a couple of things. If your partner has already asked you to have anal with them, they're probably not going to think any differently of you. But I know that this is an internal conversation that you're having with yourself. So how do I unlearn that? Have the conversations. Talk about it a little bit more. Maybe put the podcast on and just have your partner sit there and listen to it, and then open the conversation of maybe even not I really like anal, but it can be, hey, did you hear that podcast? Did you hear that Intimacy Unlocked podcast with Serena? She was talking about anal the other day, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like, how do you feel about that? What do you, have you ever tried that? Or have you ever thought about wanting to try that? Or have you ever had fantasies about trying that? Or, do you know what butt plugs look like? Like, do you know what this is? Do you know what that is? You can open up those conversations with your partner and see where that lands with them. How do I unlearn that? Like, you think your partner will think of you differently. I don't know if you assume that they will because something else has happened in your relationship where like you think that they already have a stigma around anal sex, or if you actually have no idea and it is your own personal narrative that you have inside of your body. But the only way to get through the mud is to take the next best step. So the next best step would be to have that conversation with your partner and say, hey, babe, I've been thinking about something and I'm wondering if you were thinking about it too. Can we have an open, curious conversation about something really fun that I heard Serena talking about the other day? So hopefully that helps. Okay, next, why does anal sometimes feel more intimate than vaginal sex for me? I love this question. So a couple of reasons that I can give you. I mean, I don't know why it would feel, everybody's going to be different, right? And the reasons why, but sometimes the vaginal sex doesn't always require as much. I mean, it does require as much foreplay. It does require as much prep, but it doesn't always get as much prep and it doesn't always get as much foreplay. It's considered an obligation sometimes, right? A chore. It's just kind of taken sometimes. And I don't mean that in a super negative way. Like you can still be like completely active and taking part in the vaginal sex that you're having, but it's kind of taken for granted that it's just easily going to slip in there and everybody's good and everything is fine and whatever. But in order for you to open up literally physically and mentally, like we talked about a few minutes ago, you need to calm yourself to a point and get into a different state for your nervous system to relax and open up and enjoy what's going on. And it's so vulnerable. So in that moment, you are trusting your partner who, has every opportunity to not go slow and not, and I don't mean that they have every opportunity, but, it's possible that it could not because it's happened to a lot of us before. But you're trusting them to go slow. They have to be patient. There's so much more time if you're taking more time for this foreplay and, all of the preparation that needs to be had. There's so much more time for your oxytocin to build, for your hormones to kind of like, start doing the fun work that it does, for all of the neurochemicals to kind of release and calm your nervous system, for your breath to get deep, for you to be having some communication. So if things go the way that I would like them to go for everybody, we're having this communication, this real time, oh baby, just go slow. Okay, take it easy. Oh, that feels really good. Okay, right there. So it's so much more communicative than vaginal sex. I don't know very many of us that are like, okay, baby, just the tip, just a minute, just ease in when it comes to vaginal sex, unless that's something that is required for us. Usually it's just like wham, bam, and it's in there. So for this to happen, you need to be more communicative. It is much more intimate. And I've heard, but also it's been studied that when the person who's on the top, like the top in the situation, the person doing the insertion or the penetration of whatever, fingers, body parts, or dildos, it doesn't matter. That person also looks at the person allowing them to do that in a different way and in a good way, in a good different way. Like they look at that person like, thank you for giving me this opportunity to do something that is quite vulnerable and it is quite intimate and it is so taboo and, you're really allowing me that space to be this person for you right now. So psychologically, there's a lot of things going on, right? You're sitting there as the person receiving, trusting that this partner is going to take your well-being in their hands and do the best that they possibly can to help you experience some pleasure so that they can experience the pleasure as well. And then if you say no or stop, or, you don't usually, let's say you don't normally have to say stop during vaginal sex, right? Because maybe there's never any pain for you and maybe there's never any reason that you have to stop. But for anal, you might have to. So you trust that that person is going to stop as well. So it is quite an intimate act, Can it be super casual and fun and awesome? Yeah, of course. Is it going to be intimate as well? Yes. Is it going to feel much different for everybody? Not really. Sometimes, people will be like, no, it's just the same. Oh my God, I used to laugh all the time back in the day. My husband and I'd be having sex. I'd be so tired and the kids were little and I get really, really wet. And I'd be like, oh, babe, just stick it in my ass. This gotta be over. We gotta switch things up here a little bit because I can tell this is gonna go on forever if we don't. So I was like, I knew that was like the closer and that was fine. So in those moments, maybe not so intimate, but intimate all the same. So this is why. So why does it feel more intimate than vaginal sex? For a lot of different reasons, for a lot of different people. I would love to hear if anybody's listening right now and you feel like anal sex could be more intimate than vaginal sex. Reach out, let us know. Head to the show notes, go to the anonymous form, go to our speak pipe, and let us know. How do you feel about anal? Does it make you feel really good? Does it make you feel, a little bit of something different? Do you feel like it's more of an intimate act? And then if you do answer that question, I would love to know. I would love to do a little how do you feel about why as a giver, if you're giving, why does that feel like such a cool, allowance for you? Why do you look at that person and be like, oh, wow, I can't believe that they're letting me do this, right? I mean, we know it's the taboo and the stigma and all of the rest of those things, but personally for you, what does that feel like for you? I'd love to know. Okay. The next question, we use lube, but it still feels like a lot. Do I need more or is there something else going on? Okay. So I'm assuming when you say feels like a lot, you mean maybe the pressure or maybe the sensations. Do I need more lube? Or something different, or is there something else going on? So kind of backtracking to the anatomy of your asshole, right? We talked about that parasympathetic nervous system, relaxing that second sphincter, allowing yourself that time and space to kind of get into the moment where your butt can kind of open up. You're seducing the asshole. So think about that. Now that you've heard all of that answered, I want you to think, is there sufficient time? Is there sufficient preparation? Is there sufficient trust and, speed and tempo that is happening for this to happen? And what can I change going forward if I think that, there's something else happening? Here's the other thing, you guys, is that not everybody's body is going to want to have anal sex either. So maybe there's a space where, for lots of different reasons, sure, we can try to deconstruct, or you can just sit and be like, you know what, my body doesn't really love anal, and that's okay. There could be part of you that feels obligated to try something or do something. And whether you know it or not, your subconscious mind is like, we're not going to do this today. Right? This is such a deeper thing. You really need to kind of want to be there. So if you don't want to be there, I implore you not to be there, Now, when it comes to lube, like I said, using lots of different kinds of lube is great. Sticking a pleasure pod inside of your anus to begin with is fantastic, or any lube. You can get little syringes as well and put your lube in a syringe and stick it in your asshole, pop it on up inside of your anus, and then have everything lubricated on the inside. That also helps for cleanup as well. A silicone lube is really, really great because it won't absorb into your body. A water-based lube will absorb, so you may have to reapply every now and then. The pleasure pods are really great because they're kind of like a creamy butter and they don't necessarily absorb into your body. But using that silicone lube, I think, if you're not using toys, if you're not using silicone toys, or anything that can kind of counteract the silicone in the lube, the fact that you have a lube up inside of you, let me just touch on the poop for a minute because it's like the elephant in the room. We haven't even talked about the poop yet. Poop lives in your colon. Your colon is not in your rectum. So let's go from the outside in. Okay, let's do a little tier system. So you have your anus, your little scrunchy hole, and then you have your rectum, which is just past that. It's this cavity of area. And then above that is your colon, which then attaches to your large intestine. And that's where your poop comes from. So when you are not needing to poop, your poop lives in your colon. It doesn't actually live in your rectum. It lives in your rectum. We're getting into it, kids. Okay. We're going deep. Okay, listen. I hope you're still here. Listen. When you feel it, like when you know you got to do it, it's in your rectum. Okay. And that's the moment that we go, oh, pardon me, I'm just going to go to the bathroom. You know, everybody does it as human. Okay. But that's the sensation because it's there now and it's pushing on those sphincters that I was talking about from the other side. Okay. And it stimulates your nervous system to say, haha, we have something, we've got to push this out. So this is cool. Otherwise, most of that lives in your colon the entire time until it's ready to come out. So the mess, the quote mess that people are normally worried about, it's not going to happen like this all the time. Sometimes, yes, we will have bigger messes. Sometimes we won't have any mess at all. But if you do have a little mess, if there is a little bit left over, a lube inside of you is going to really help that fecal matter not stick to anything. Whether it's a body part or a toy or a finger or glove, whatever that is, it's going to help it slide a little bit more. So it really does help with cleanup that way, okay? Poop doesn't live in your rectum, but poop happens. So I always say that if you are going to practice anal play, there's a few things that I want you to have ready to go always, okay? We always talk about having your hoe bag packed if you're going to go out on the town. I always talk about having your nightstand ready to go with your lube on every nightstand and your condoms and, you know, your toys and everything ready to go, like looking good, not just dust filled under your bed. Your anal stuff is the same. I would like you to have a couple of wet wipes, a nice warm cloth. It's probably not going to be warm by the time you're done with it, but you know what? Everything helps. A towel, not a little hand towel, but a large towel, and have that close by. If you're using any sort of toys or gloves or condoms or dental dams or anything like that, when you're finished using that, it's imperative that it does not come back into play at any other body part. Okay, so there is fecal matter in your anus. And when we do have anal play, there is bacteria. We can get around it and we can have beautiful anal play, but you just want to make sure, first of all, nothing goes ass to mouth, ATM, as they say. Okay, so no ass to mouth, no fingers, no mouth down there and then come up and kiss your partner, no mouth and then onto the vulva, you know, no mouth and then onto the penis, like anus to the penis, nothing inserted and then kind of changed over. So if you do use a toy and you don't plan on using that again on the asshole, you take that toy, you put it on this large towel that you have, black preferably or dark colored. You lay it, you wrap it, and you leave it. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it. You lay it, this is the important part, you wrap it, and you leave it. Okay, you just kind of cover it up a little bit. But if you have a large towel, then you've got a couple of layers that you can lay different things on and wrap it, okay, and fill it. If you have gloves, if you have condoms, whatever, you take it, you lay it, you wrap it, you leave it. And then you take care of all of that when you're done. You have your wet wipes there that you can kind of clean your hands with and clean everything else out with. I always recommend, and I know people think that this is going to ruin the mood, but it really doesn't, is that when you do the transition, take a little run into the bathroom, give yourself a little cleanup. You know, this is why I do recommend using condoms for anal play, though, if I'm being completely honest, is that if you can use a condom and you use condom for anal, even if you're with a monogamous partner, it doesn't matter, but use that, you can take the condom off and then you don't have to run into the bathroom and like use the soap and water to clean up, and you can transition into different play because now you've taken that bacteria and you've put it somewhere different. Okay. So that's really, and the same thing with gloves. Like it's just easy cleanup, guys. It's just easy, fun ways to do this. So if you have a little glove on, you do the little anal fun things, you take those gloves off, snap, snap, toss them over onto your towel, wrap it, leave it, and keep going and go do whatever you're going to do. Make it easy on yourself, you know, allow yourself that space and time to be able to do that. Okay. So, and one more thing that I want to mention is, you know, when we're doing anal play, I talked a lot now about toys, right? So the thing that you want to make sure is that if you're using an anal toy at all, it needs to have a base on it. Okay. So if you're watching us on YouTube, fantastic. If not, head over to YouTube, follow Intimacy Unlocked, and have a look at all of these really fun things that I have here with me today. everything that goes into your asshole needs to have a base on it at least 1.5 inches. Okay. I think people say 1 inch. I say 1.5 inches or bigger. The reason for, and then have a neck on it as well that's smaller, right? So I'm going to hold up a little butt plug. This is a baby butt plug. It's the smallest one that I have anyway. It's a really little tiny thing, and it's maybe 1 inch around on its high, like its largest diameter. And then the neck of the butt plug is quite narrow, kind of like a pencil. And then the base on it has another inch or so. So it's a little bit bigger. So you'll go big, small, big. And the reason for that is that it does need to plug. Going back to that anatomy lesson that we had a little while earlier, that sphincter that I was talking about, the first sphincter that we can kind of clench, that second sphincter, we don't have any control over that one, right? So once things go in there, some people think that it will be really easy if I just poop them out, like if I just push them out, but that's not how it works. So if something gets lost in your anal cavity, most of the time, there are some exceptions, but 99.9% of the time, you are going to have a professional take that out for you. And by professional, I mean medical professional, meaning you will have to go to the emerge and you will have to do that. I was a paramedic for a long time, and we saw some fun things, and people had really good nights, and thank God I never saw anything that was life-threatening. So But it was, kind of ruined the mood a little bit having to go to the emergency room because you kind of stuck it up there and you couldn't get it back out. Okay. So just make sure that you have a base on all of your toys. If you go to any sex shop or you're looking at anything online, you have to make sure that there is a large base on the bottom of any toy that you are going to put inside of your asshole. Okay. And now just to close up a little bit on the ass play here, I do want to talk a little bit about the prostate. So I know I've joked this whole time, and I don't mean to sound rude when I say, straight guys should put something up their asshole. But the reason is, for people who have penises, you have a prostate that lives inside of you. It lives almost at the base of your penis as it goes inside of your body. Okay. If you followed the base of your penis all the way up inside of your body, it's about halfway down where your perineum is. If you were to kind of go up inside, if you could cross-section your body and go up inside, probably 2 or 3 inches, you have a nugget up there. It's your prostate gland. It's responsible for a whole bunch of stuff that we won't get into right now, but it is a pleasure center for you as well. Having that stimulated can actually allow you to have multiple orgasms. So people who can stimulate their prostate, you don't have to rely on your shaft and ejaculation in order to feel this orgasm. So what happens when you ejaculate, you have a refractory period most of the time. Some people's are short, some people's are longer, some people are done. But what if I told you that if you were able to stimulate that prostate either with your fingers or a toy or something else, or even external stimulation with a vibrator or a hand with pressure on your perineum, that you could stimulate that prostate, and because that's your orgasm center, you could have multiple orgasm after orgasm after orgasm without ejaculating, and therefore go back and have another orgasm, have another orgasm, have another orgasm. It's the ejaculation that's stopping you from having the most amazing pleasure of your entire life. We talk all the time about, people like women are having all these multiple orgasms. I go, dudes can have multiple orgasms too. Anybody with a prostate, you can have multiple orgasms. You just need to find a way to get that prostate stimulated. So anal play is going to be amazing. Perineum play is going to be amazing. So I want you to think about that. Now, we do have a couple of questions that came in that had nothing to do with butt play, but I do want to touch on them a little bit right now. So here's the first one. It says, I came out to my husband as bi 4 years ago. He's been really supportive and understanding and said he understands if I want to explore. And I do, but I haven't. I don't want to date or hook up with a friend because that seems like it could be messy. Plus, I'm not ready to come out to my friend group. I looked at Skirt Club, but they seem to favor young, skinny femmes. I don't know where to start. Well, I don't know what Skirt Club is, but I might have to take a look. So I love learning new things. You guys teach me stuff every day. I don't know where to start. And you don't want to come out to everybody. I don't know where you are. I don't know what's going on. But, one of the things that I tell people a lot is, like you said, I'm sorry, you said, I'm not ready to come out yet to my friend group. But what you want to do is find community, right? So just find community, find your, find any kind of queer munch or a queer party or club or event or festival or anything like open to the public, right? Because if you still have a little bit of nervousness, a little bit of apprehension to kind of come out to everybody about this, what I always suggest is just immersing yourself in the energy that you want to feel in your life. So that can be anything from, going to, it's Pride Month right now. So go to any Pride events that are coming up. Surround yourself with things that make you feel really comfortable in your sexuality, listening to different podcasts, doing different things, reading different books. Now, like I started out by saying, I don't know where you are, but I know that where I live, we have a group that does, just fun parties. They're fun parties once a month. It's like going to a club and you're surrounded by like-minded people. Nothing happens here. It's not a sex party at all, but it's called Nightshade. And it's just a party at, a club or at a hotel, and people get dressed up in costumes and you go and you just surround yourself with like-minded people to have a little bit of fun, feel that energy, feel it out for yourself and just see what's going on. Because then you never know where those really organic relationships are going to build, right? And it doesn't have to be romantic. It could be a friend. So you might say to yourself, I'm going, quote, because I'm bi. But you might just go meet a friend who then introduces you to another event that's going on over here. And then maybe you and your husband go to that event, or maybe you go by yourself. Maybe you meet another friend who takes you to another event. Like, allow yourself the space to just meet friends. Sometimes when we're trying to do something new, or something a little bit outside of our comfort zone, I should say, we tend to think we have to do that exact thing, right? So for you, you're like, I looked at Skirt Club and I'm not ready for that. And they favor, people that maybe, it sounds to me like maybe you don't feel like you are, you don't want to hook up and you don't want to be with a friend, but go and do the things that, allow you a little bit more time and space to settle into it rather than jumping right in, right? So like, rather than like, I got to eat pussy today, you could be like, or I can just go to, let's say this Nightshade party and kind of meet a couple of people, and then maybe go to a Pride event, and then maybe I'm introduced to this queer club that I didn't know existed, and maybe I'm going to go there and dance my face off and meet a whole bunch of new people, and then organic things happen for you. Okay, so good luck, and reach out. Let me know how you do. All right, the next one is, it's a confession. It says, I have a confession. I still think about a guy from back in college. We were super close friends, but never officially dated. We made out a few times. I gave him a blowjob in the shower one time in college. Then on my bachelorette trip, one of my girlfriends secretly had him show up very late to one of the bars as a one last fling opportunity. I've been married 9 years and love my hubby, but I definitely think about this guy when I'm fantasizing. I secretly kind of wish I would have hooked up with him that once. Will this feeling ever stop? Definitely will never tell my husband about this one. And you said this could be a naughty confession. I do feel naughty about it. Okay, yeah, it can be a naughty confession, and there's no judgment here, and you can tell me anything and we will tell the world. But nobody judges on Intimacy Unlocked, and it's always just a really good place for you to get these things out of your system. So, but let me just acknowledge a couple of things. First of all, I want to acknowledge, bravo for not hooking up with this guy before you got married. I will say that because I think that it takes a lot of self-control. And, not everybody would have done that. So you held yourself to a standard, whatever that standard was for you, and you decided to stick with that. So I just want to commend you for that. Just for you. I mean, there'd be no judgment if you did it either way. It's just, it sounds like you didn't and you were, good with your decision. I secretly fantasize about him. I think about it when I'm fantasizing. So guys, you've heard me talk about fantasizing so many times. Your fantasies are nobody else's fucking business. You can fantasize about, listen, you can come at me if you want, because I know I've got some people that are like, no, that's cheating. No, it isn't. You can fantasize about whoever you want. Now, there's nuance to that. If you're fantasizing about somebody else because your partner just can't do it for you, that's just something I think that maybe you should acknowledge and maybe just come on and have a little chat about, okay? Because there could be lots of things going on, but you're allowed to have those fantasies. You're allowed to have this like sexy longing for this long lost lover. I mean, that just kind of gives a little spice to life, I think. So I think maybe a reframe for this with you is that instead of thinking it as like the one who got away, just reframe it as, you know what, this is going to be, I'm going to have so many orgasms thinking about this for the rest of my life. You know, this was that thing that kind of fueled me up. It gives me some fire in my belly. You know, it makes me feel really good about myself to think about like how hot this was with this guy and, you know, all of these things. So will it ever stop? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, you can make it stop. I mean, this is, you know, unpopular opinion, but like we are in control of our rumination and, you know, there are techniques that we can use to make ourselves stop thinking about something. So if you wanted to stop, you would, but maybe you don't want to stop thinking about this guy. And that's an okay thing too. Maybe it just brings a little bit of, you know, a little bit of zhuzh to your experience, to your life. And I don't think that that's a bad thing at all. You know, I definitely will never tell my husband about this one. You know, I would probably agree with you that maybe you don't say that one of your friends brought this guy to your honey or your bachelorette party. That might put a little veil on a lot of relationships. I get that, but you could sit down and have a conversation about fantasies with your partner, with your husband one of these days. Find out what he fantasizes about. Tell him about this, you know, quote, oh, this little fantasy that I have about this guy that I knew in college. And, you know, part of it might take away a little bit of the guilt that you've admitted to your partner that you have this fantasy about somebody else. You have to kind of navigate that conversation with your partner the best you can, knowing who your partner is, right? So I say these things, you guys, but I completely understand the nuances around different agreements that different partners have within their own relationships. And if that's something that you think would rock the boat, then you keep your fantasies to yourself. If you don't think it's going to rock the boat and you think, you know what, my partner would get a big kick out of, you know, hearing this and I would get a kick out of hearing their fantasies, go for it. But you need to be discerning in those conversations yourself. Okay, guys, thank you for listening to All About Anal today on Intimacy Unlocked. Like I said, this is such a big topic and it's one of my favorites. And I'm not going to lie to you, we didn't touch on every single thing that we could have touched on. So if you are local, I'm going to say, come on over to the sex show, the Atlantic Sex Show on June 14th and 15th. On Saturday afternoon, I'm going to be doing All About Anal in a workshop setting. And we're going to dive into all of the nitty gritty with all of the toys and all of the things and all of the fun playtime. So come and see me at the Atlantic Sex Show on the 14th and the 15th. You can get tickets online at theatlanticsexshow.com. And also, if you're listening today is release day on Wednesday, on June 4th. If you're listening now, tomorrow night, and you're local, tomorrow night on June 5th, I'm going to be at Mill Cove Brew Pub in Bedford doing my live Just the Tip on stage show. Pleasures and Treasures is going to be there. They're going to have a booth set up with all kinds of fun toys and things that, you know, you guys can take home with you. We're going to be talking all about closing the orgasm gap. So bring your partners, bring your gals, bring your pals, and just come and have a really good time. Get some wings, beer. It's going to be an amazing Thursday night. So that's on June 5th at Mill Cove Brew Pub. And you can get your tickets in the show notes or also on my Instagram at Serena_Haines. So thank you for listening to this week's episode of Intimacy Unlocked. We're here to answer all of your questions. Send them in, head to the show notes. The anonymous form is there. The anonymous speak pipe is there. And we'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Intimacy Unlocked podcast, where I'm unlocking your pleasure one question at a time. The key is already in your hands. Are you ready to turn it? Intimacy Unlocked is hosted by me, Serena Haines, your everything to do with sex coach. Produced by Sarah McClellan and supported by the Pleasure Pods.